Hey everybody, it's Mike Young, lifestyle nutritionist with aPlantBasedDiet.org. We are on chapter 39 of Live to 150. I think we're going to have at least 150 chapters, I think, in this book. Maybe we should just keep it right at 150. Wouldn't that be cool? Okay, chapter 39 on SAD. And I'm not talking about the standard American diet. I'm talking about seasonal affective disorder. So let me give you a quick overview in case you're not familiar with what seasonal affective disorder is. Maybe you haven't, you didn't even know it. All right, well, first of all, the earth is round. If you have a problem with that, maybe you need to go somewhere else and do some research, but the earth is round. Okay, it's a big sphere. It's constantly spinning, right? It's revolving around the sun and it's tilted. So at certain times of the year, depending on where you are in the world, there's summer or the warm months. Or the opposite of that, depending upon the tilt of the earth, is winter or the cold months. And what affects whether it's summer or winter? Well, obviously it's the tilt of the earth relative to spinning around the sun and spinning on itself. It changes during the course of the year, and every 365 days, it flips to the next cycle, goes through a complete cycle. So if you're down on the equator, and we are actually involved in some projects there, some intentional communities in Ecuador, which I'd highly recommend you look into. Go to aPlantBasedDiet.org and click on intentional communities. You'll find out more about those. It's in Ecuador, and Ecuador, E-C-U-A-D-O-R, I believe I've spelled that right, gets its name from the equator because the country is right on the equator there. Okay, a little bit above, a little bit below. Quito, I believe, is right on the equator or very, very close to it. And it's also, they got a lot of altitude there. So the sunlight, if you're right on the equator, it never changes, right? All year round, you get the same amount of sunlight, which is great for a couple reasons. Number one, if you're trying to grow plants and you're trying to use the sun, and we know the sun is like the most powerful thing. There is nothing more powerful than the sun. If you know of something more powerful than the sun, then please let me know in the comments. I'd like to look into it. But as far as I know, there's nothing more powerful. You can't even look at the sun directly without burning your eyes and destroying your vision after a very, very short period of time. It's bad. Don't ever, ever do that. And no, you can't. It hurts so bad you can't. That's why people wear sunglasses, sunscreen, long sleeves, all this stuff. It's so damn powerful, but it's beneficial. Also, because of the power, not only do you have to take certain precautions, but there are many benefits to getting all that energy from harnessing the energy of the sun. Of course, we know about solar electricity, which is probably going to shift the paradigm away from fossil fuels. It's awesome. We live in a time where we have the technology where we can do that. The other thing is plants. Plants, when they're growing outside, if you believe there's more benefits to getting the sun, they do well with the sun. So that's another reason why we have these projects going on there at Terra Frutis and Fruit Haven in Ecuador. Learn about them on our website, aPlantBasedDiet.org. But most people don't live on the equator or within a couple degrees of the equator. So if you don't, what happens is during the summer months or the warm months, depending on where you are, especially if you're outside of the tropics, there's the Tropic of Cancer and Capricorn. I can't remember which is which, but those define the closeness to the equator. Once you get outside of those tropics, you're further away. You just don't get the kind of intensity from the sun anymore. But during the peak of the summer, I think like summer solstice, you get your angle on your part of the globe is as close to right underneath the sun, or it's as close to the best angle you possibly could where you're going to get the most energy and heat from the sun. That's why it's warmer. And then the opposite is true in winter, like winter solstice. I think summer solstice is usually June. Winter is December. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but you get the idea. And actually, well, winter, it depends on whether you're in some southern hemisphere. It's reversed if you are in the southern hemisphere. I'm in the northern hemisphere, obviously. So only time I'm in the southern hemisphere is when we go to these intentional communities in Ecuador, because they are actually in the southern hemisphere. It's the only time I've ever been in the southern hemisphere for that matter. But in the winter, the angle of the sun, the tilt of the earth, because the tilt of the earth is off, the angle of the sun is way off, it gets really cold. And that's when you really get hit with seasonal affective disorder. At least I do. And I didn't really know or quite understand it because I thought there was something wrong with me in a way, that I was sensitive to the reduction in brightness, the reduction in heat, the reduction in daylight hours. That's the other thing. The days are much shorter when you're tilted away from the sun in the winter solstice, in the cold months. So you get hit three ways: less brightness, less intensity of the sun, shorter days. I can't even remember what the third one was, but and of course the plants don't like it. That's another way. You know, if you live outside of the tropics, once you get to the cold months, not many plants grow outside. In fact, if you go to areas that are experiencing the winter solstice, usually they have mostly deciduous trees. They have some evergreens, but a lot of the deciduous trees that are out there, they look like they're dead. They don't even look like they're alive anymore. You know, a lot of places that are far up towards the poles or down towards the poles, depending upon which hemisphere you're in, they look like there's no life there. There is, but there's not that much. And it kind of makes me wonder, like, why did humans end up there? And, you know, there's been many different theories. And some of the theories involve the fact that maybe, you know, ancient civilizations were all close to the equator and we just destroyed the planet unknowingly. We weren't as smart as we are today, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. You can let me know in the comments, but we may have done some really dumb things that we're smart enough now to not repeat if we had to start from scratch all over again. That's also the basis of the intentional communities near Ecuador. If you're wondering why that's happening now in the last 10 years, well, that's why. I think we've reached a certain point with knowledge distribution and we can do these things. Well, if we were pushed out, you know, if you think about it, animal agriculture only really comes into the play of necessity if you have no way to store things in a warm environment in the winter, if you are in these cold climates that are far away from the equator. And maybe this is a bad thing. Maybe we as humans were never intended to live like that. Let me know what your thoughts are. I mean, as time goes on, I'm 52, as I'm recording this here in 2022, I'm thinking that may be the case. You know, if you think there's some value or lots of value to growing your plants with the actual powerful sun and rain, natural rainfall, especially the sun, then you'll need to live where you, and of course, here's the other part. If you think there's value in letting your vegetables and fruits ripen on the plant and picking them and eating them right away for maximum nutritional value, then how can you do this for half the year in the cold climates without refrigeration or shipping it in from somewhere else or whatever. But even so, forget all that for a minute. I'm telling you, for my seasonal affective disorder, I lived in Maryland for most of my life until recent times. It wasn't till the year 2007 that I finally actually moved out of Maryland, I think for the first time ever since I was 4. I think my parents moved me there when I was 4. And Maryland had some Maryland's pretty much like a northern climate, I'd say. Even though the Mason-Dixon line technically separates the north from the south in the United States, and the Mason-Dixon line is the northern border of Maryland, it would get I mean, there's some mountains out in Maryland. It was so, well, actually there are in Virginia too, so who knows? In North Carolina, it really snows like crazy in the western parts of Virginia and North Carolina and Maryland. So it got cold. It got cold. Maryland's further up than Virginia and North Carolina. So you keep going up, you get less and less sun, less intensity, less daylight hours. I just felt like I was in a hibernation. I also worked at a traditional landscaping business, and that's all based on the growing season, of course. It's all outdoor work. And I didn't even used to do snow removal. When I didn't do snow removal, I was even more of a hibernation state because I did nothing all winter but hibernate, which is kind of weird. That whole thing was off. It was off track. It was off sync with everything else that was going on in the world, and still is for the most part, meaning the school calendars, like based on an agricultural calendar, you know, and the kids are all out of school in July and August, a lot of June as well. Actually, most of June. That was my peak season, my busy season. My time for vacation was the winter time when I went to get the heck out of there and go somewhere warm, and the kids couldn't, which is it always kind of was weird. I'm like, why? I guess we hang on to a lot of things. We hang on to a lot of traditions. We don't know why. So I think that old school calendar, a lot of the schools in North Carolina actually are year round, and it kind of makes that a lot easier, which is great. So that changed when I moved to North Carolina. But also the fact that we're even in these cold climates may be simply the result of traditions that were kind of started out of the necessity of leaving areas that we had destroyed, or I don't know, just the sake of exploring, and we realized we screwed it up. But it wasn't really easy to communicate way back in the day. People didn't have mobile phones or the internet. You couldn't just say, hey, we're way too far north, turn back around. No, they were there, and they figured out how to make it work. Usually, almost exclusively, it's involved animal products, making it work, not plants. But let me tell you, from my point of seasonal affective disorder, this has been a long story now, I really was affected by, and still am, by seasonal affective disorder. It drains my energy, and especially as we get into the cold months, because I'm in a business, I'm still in that landscaping business, where the growing season up north is basically in the United States from April through October. So from November through March, there's not much work, and it's cold. It's not, and really hardly anything's growing. You can't really grow plants outdoors from November to March. So I have found that there's no equivalent to the sun. If nothing's more powerful than the sun, then no amount of light therapy is going to help you, because it's not going to come close to the sun unless these lights are so powerful that I can't even look at them for more than a few seconds. And if I can, they're probably going to burn my house down. There's no way that somebody can make a light that powerful and still, not destroy everything. It's probably more like a bomb flash is probably more equivalent to the sun, but that'd be continually. So that's the only solution that I see. And I don't know, maybe you never thought about this before. Maybe you never realized how you get in the winter. But like I said, I also work a seasonal business to where I am outdoors during the growing season, and then it just dries up and I'm like hibernating like a bear or some other type of an animal. And I can see why the animals hibernate. It just makes sense that they're living up there. But we're humans. We can do whatever we want. We can not have to go through that every year. And maybe we shouldn't, especially if we're trying to optimize our health. And these animals are not necessarily trying to optimize their health. They don't have the thinking abilities to reason through all of this and then make some choices that would prevent their seasonal affective disorder or their hibernating from happening, or whatever it might be. I mean, not to say that there aren't certain classes of similar animals that have done that, because I know that, just I saw on the internet, there's bears in Naples, Florida. I know there's bears up in northern Pennsylvania where we were too. They're bears, but those two bears are experiencing dramatically different environments, So it's interesting just to look at something like that. But from our perspective, I'd say it's my belief that most humans, whether you realize it or not, are impacted negatively by seasonal affective disorder. I think that humans are designed to live within the tropical regions, if not very close to the equator, in places that you can grow your own food year round. And like I said, be able to pick it when it's ripe and eat it immediately, because that's where you get all the enzymes, all the nutrition, and it starts to die. The plant starts to die the minute you pick it. But you want all that life energy from the sun to be transmitted into your body. And I think that some humans have it a little wrong, if you ask me. I think some people think that's, I'm a sun worshiper. I go out and I tan all day. Of course, these are really white people, Caucasians. That's not the way they were designed. Their ancestors, at least the most recent ones, did not do that. They're actually probably going to end up with skin cancer, severe premature aging, wrinkling, who knows, a whole slew of other things, okay? I think the way you get that sun, worship that sun, is by getting the plants to harness that energy for you. That's why they're here. That's what they're designed for. They can't move anywhere. They're stuck in the ground, all right? They are not humans. They're here to assist us, the plants. So that's, if you're a real sun worshiper, you'll get your sun exposure through the plants. Like for me, I work outdoors and I have for decades, but I'm always covered up. I got long sleeves, I got a hat. I'm still getting the benefit of the sun because I'm out there. Like we said, nothing's more powerful than the sun. Just being outside, even if I got a face mask on, which I do a lot of times now, and sunglasses, I'm still getting the benefits of the sun, because you can't escape it when you're outside. You are getting those sun's rays on you no matter what. I'm just not getting I'm not getting an overdose of sun, which I think some people who think are sun worshipers, that's what they do. They OD on the sun. You OD on anything, it's going to be a problem. But just being out there, I think we're designed to be outdoors. Maybe we're designed to be migratory, because we're up here, Denise and I are up north, during the growing season. Our event season is from basically October through April. And we're mostly in the South. All our events are outdoors through our nonprofit. So I think all this syncs up with the way nature is, the way the earth is, with what's optimal for the human body. I think all of these things are in alignment. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd like to hear what your opinion is. Maybe you've never thought about these types of things before. But the more I think about it, and the more I feel it, I mean, we're pretty much exclusively in Florida in the cold months here of the Northern Hemisphere. And in the past, when I would stay here and I would go to Florida, I would spend, time up north in the cold months and then time in Florida in the cold months. I could see that as I was driving down, I almost always driven, not flown. I could feel the difference the minute I crossed into Florida of just that sun. It finally reaches a level that is just acceptable to my body. And I feel better. I don't feel cold. I don't feel tired. I don't feel drained. And it's all because that's necessary. But again, you don't want to OD on it. Just being there, just being in the car, I could feel the benefits of being at that latitude and lower during those months. So what's your experience with this? Let me know if you have seasonal affective disorder, if you had it, if you sought treatment for it. I mean, the only real treatment I know, like addressing the root cause, that's what this whole book is about, right? Addressing the root cause of issues, you have to go south. I mean, it could be that living near the equator is the absolute ultimate, and we're building a tiny house there, and we hope to spend huge amounts of time there in the near future. We'll be able to see how it is. I mean, but there's so much life there. Like where those communities are is in the Amazon rainforest, right in the edges of it, and the amount of bugs, the amount of birds, the amount of plants. It's just crazy how many species and varieties of everything you find down there. And, like I said, up north, it looks like everything's dead in the wintertime. And there's not that variety of life. So think about all that. Let me know your thoughts. Of course, if you got some value out of this chapter, hit the like button and definitely subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. And I will see you in the next chapter. Bye-bye, everybody.